Hello, hello, hello. It is a pleasure to be back again this evening, Sunday live at 5 with me, Nadine Mendez, with Amazing Journey Realty, where we are committed and driven for your success. So it is so great to be here again, and we're just going to try to get in it and through it as quickly as possible. Um, First and foremost, it's Black History Month and we take it really seriously. And so this is a time to commemorate our heroes of yesteryear and also those living legends that are placing a mark, including you and I. Um, Placing a mark here while we have the privilege of life. And therefore, I commend our all those who have contributed significantly over the years in making a difference for future growth and upliftment for all. And therefore, it is a pleasure to be here in February, Black History Month. How are you doing? How has your week been? I hope it has been good in spite of all the tragedies that we've been hearing about. My heart, my prayers go out to all those who have suffered loss. It is just amazing. January seemed like a pretty long month, right? And with all the natural disasters and plane issues, crashes, loss of life suddenly. It has been an interesting month, but we pray that it's not a precursor for what the year will be like. And so we remain hopeful that as the year progresses, we will overcome any challenge that we face throughout this period. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, it would be remiss of me not to request of you to like, share, subscribe for this specific channel that could be useful for you or someone you know who will be going on a real estate journey within the near future. And therefore, we want to help them as much as we can build awareness and also for you all to um, enjoy the journey of real estate, whatever your sphere of field, whether it's for commercial or residential properties. It should be helpful at some point. But this time around, we're going to be focusing more on residential properties, right? Over time, we'll change that. We'll evolve. We'll evolve as we go. So this week topic will be on. Actually, this week is a repeat from last week. So my apologies for the audio last week. Glitches do happen. And it so happened that, there was a little glitch and we weren't able to um, record live at 5 the way we would have liked it to be. And therefore, this week is a repeat from last week. And it's about the buying process. It's for sellers and buyers alike. Remember, sellers are buyers. And very often, those who are selling homes are looking to purchase something else. And therefore, it's good to know all sides of the story, right? And with that said, let's get into it. All right. So I have the buying process before me. You might not be able to see it at this point, and I'm going to try to figure out how I can get it streamed so that you can see it while I'm doing this live. Remember, what I'm doing is not scripted. It is something that I'm just working on for your good, and therefore, yeah, in due season, it should improve. All right. So essentially, the buying process. There are several steps and stages that the typical buyer who will be purchasing, especially if they're using a mortgage, the typical buyer will be required to go through a few steps prior to even connecting with a realtor to either purchase their property or sell sell their property as well. Now, particularly if you are going to get a mortgage, it's always helpful for you to get what is called a pre-approval for buyers. So you're always encouraged to get in touch either with a realtor that you feel comfortable working with, or you can go directly to a financial institution of your choice, or to a mortgage broker who can connect you to the right institution that will give you the right rate for your loan. And therefore, that's pretty much the first step that any one buyer need to know. You need to be able to determine how much house you are eligible to purchase. Okay, and it doesn't mean because you're qualified for 500,000 it means that you must purchase something for 500,000. Okay, you have to also look at how much can you afford to repay or service your loan when you do have this specific or your dream home. All right, so just bear in mind all of these. Once you have been pre approved, and typically the pre approval process is where the mortgage representative will check your debt as well as your income, sustainable income, that is. So they will check on both to see your debt to income ratio to determine what kind of loan you are eligible for. All right, and there are several types, but three known, depending on where you stand. So it could be a conventional loan, where typically for those who are over a certain credit weighting and score plus income, 750, I believe, and above are considered excellent credit or good enough credit in order to obtain lower interests. And if it is you need to know a little more about this, I have, I think, not the previous, the two episodes prior will explain in details how the loan process to an extent works. Okay, so once you have determined how much you can afford, then you lead to the next step. You have what is called a pre approval, which is a confirmation from your mortgage representative, your chosen mortgage representative, that you are eligible to purchase X property within the price range. All right. So once you have this is something that any realtor, whether it's the listing agent that you're going to go directly to, or it's the buyer's agent that you're going to contract in order to find the right home that you need. So either way, you will need to have this pre-approval, particularly if you're purchasing by with a mortgage. If it's cash, you'd have had to provide proof of funds to show that you are indeed qualified to purchase the property of your wish. All right. Now, once you've found a realtor, we talked about the different steps in prior episodes, but just to give you a few highlights, it's always good to interview a few realtors, whomever you feel most comfortable with. After asking certain questions, make sure that it's someone you can communicate with, whom you can communicate, and who knows what they're doing, because this is a big step that you're making, right? And therefore, it's important that you choose wisely. Go with your intuition, go with your heart, go with your gut. Likewise, when you're choosing your mortgage rep. All right. So once you have decided, now there are two ways you could, because some buyers, believe they can do it on their own, and they do their research and they know what they are doing. It's a little more tedious, but some buyers may go directly to the listing agent, meaning the agent that's representing the seller first and foremost. The listing agent, in order to purchase that property of their dreams. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but make sure you know what you're getting into. So essentially, the listing agent, first and foremost, represents the seller, but they have to treat you fairly with the correct information. All right. They have to treat you honestly, right? And therefore, information that's material to the property, they should be able to provide that. Like, for example, if known defects, there was a flooding, for example, those information would have had to be highlighted. Okay, so just to bear those in mind, if you're talking to a listing agent, the chances are, if you have an interest in that specific house, then you may get into a type of contract where, one, you could either go unrepresented, or two, you could go into a relationship where it's a dual agency. In other words, that listing agent who initially represents the seller would now, providing that the seller is also on board with dual agency or designated agency, then you can go into what is considered an agreement where that listing agent now represents you and the seller and would have had to maintain a neutral stance as it relates to your confidential information as well as the seller's confidential information, right? Um, each step has its own process, and it can help. It can be really worth your while, providing you know what you're doing, you understand the whole process, and yeah, it's possible, and that agent or realtor is treating you honestly and fairly, both parties, that is, buyer and seller. All right, so you also have the option of choosing an agent, a buyer's agent, bearing in mind that you may have to pay for this service. It is not as though it were yesteryear where you would go to a buyer's agent and it's automatic that the listing side would have provided what is called a corporating fee. All right, it has been phased out since last year, August the 17th, and it has now been firm that a buyer need to contract the services of a buyer's agent. My prior episode, two prior episodes, would have explained it in details. All right. So if it is that someone is going to be taking you to see various properties, then the higher chance would be you'd pay for that service. All right. So either way, you have a choice. No more as you go. Now, the next stage is finding the perfect property. Now, remember, if you're doing it on your own and you're looking and you're taking your time, whatever, it's up to you. All right. Recommended, it's a little faster sometimes when you work with an agent. Working with an agent, you go find the perfect property. There's no such thing as a perfect property, though, but you do have that option. Once you found the property, next step would likely be to negotiate on the terms by putting in an offer. Usually, you would have or you should have received what is called a seller's disclosure, which will tell you what's happening with this specific property. It's a document that is completed by the seller to tell you what's going on with this property. All right. So, and that's also for your benefit, for both of your benefits, so that both of you know exactly what you're going into, or for the most part, because bearing in mind, there are what you call latent defects where neither the seller nor you would know, or even your realtor would know. And therefore, you'd have had to, but at least you have an idea as to what's happening. Yes, there was a flooding, or yes, we know of an oil tank buried somewhere on the property. So it's always helpful to have these lead paints for houses that were built prior to 1978. So there's a lead paint disclosure. And now there are other factors and disclosures that are being implemented for your protection as well as for the seller. Remember, for this channel, it's both for sellers and buyers. Remember, sellers are buyers, right? And therefore, it is for you to know. So once you have signed off, you have agreed on the terms, you move forward to the attorney review process, and that's where your attorney, depending on which part of the U.S. you are, and which state you are. In New Jersey, we actually have two types of practice here. So in New Jersey, the mostly northern side of New Jersey recommend highly that you go into an attorney review. In any case, you have an option of going to what is called an attorney review, where both your, as a buyer attorney, and the seller's attorney will review the document that both yourself and the seller would have signed. Now, bear in mind that document, which is usually produced by the real estate broker or realtor, is a standard document. However, there could be other conditions that you or the seller may have, and therefore to reconcile any differences in order to move forward with your transaction. All right. So once you've done that, you've signed off, meeting of the minds. Well, it's not fully meeting of the minds, but yes, you've signed off on that. Then you move to inspections. And inspections, this is where for the so-called latent defects, the things that you cannot see with the naked eye, there's major issues with the roof, or there is, whatever there is, those would have taken into effect. And that's why it's always recommended that you get an expert's advice. Um, it's there was a period in time when individuals were waiving inspections. It's not a great idea to waive inspections because you really need to know what you are getting. And with that said, you would have likely contracted the services of an expert to check the things that you would not have seen with your naked eyes. Okay, so once we've gone through that, there is, during this period, whomever had applied for a mortgage, remember we spoke about the pre-approval earlier? So during that period, your mortgage representative will be sending your documentation to underwriting to ensure that you have really met the criteria and there are no changes during the transaction. Now, bear in mind, guys, if it is that you are purchasing a property and you've finally found the right property and you've put in your offer and the seller accepted, please don't go buying furniture for a whole house because, oh, on credit. Don't do that because you are essentially driving up your debts before you even get your loan. All right. And therefore, it's helpful for you to try to curtail your spending until after you have closed. All right. And you don't want any surprises on your end, nor on anyone's end in the transaction. So you may have to, and it's encouraged that you wait. All right. So, so there you have it. The mortgage commitment would have had to be taken place during this period. Title search, all of these things. It's a lot. It's a very complicated process. And it's always good when you have your experts around you in order to guide you through the process, unless you're well learned. We do have buyers out there who make the effort to know as much and they do their research and they know what it is that they're getting into. By all means, do it if you can. But it's always recommended to contract the services of an expert, right? So that's your realtor, your attorney, an inspector, and your mortgage rep for sure. All right. So once you have agreed on all the terms and all the conditions have been met, then you move toward closing. And that's still critical. All right. So there are so many things that could go wrong before closing. And that's where it's helpful, both buyer and seller, to connect with your realtor expert. Okay. Never ever believe that this process, as easy as I laid it out just now for you, it doesn't mean it's as easy. Okay. There is so much more that goes on in between. There's so many things that could possibly go wrong, but there are also great outcomes that can be arrived, providing you take the necessary steps and precaution in getting into one of these types of relationship, in one of these types of issue. Hi, I see you. Thank you for joining in. And if you have any questions or comments, or please just drop it in the comment section, and I'll respond to you accordingly. In terms of mortgage rates, we know mortgage rates are in the high 6 7s, depending on the type of loan that you're getting. And but mortgage companies are becoming a little more innovative in their ways of doing things. So whomever you're dealing with, you can speak to them about how you can benefit. And remember, any time is the best time for you to purchase. Once the need is there, or sell. Once the need is there, go for it. Family dynamics, you name it. Whatever the need is, do not let that delay you, because essentially, particularly if you're going to be purchasing and you're going to be spending maybe a lifetime building your family or whatever it is, or if it's an empty nester, the remainder of your life, retirement in your forever home, it means you're going to be there for a minute, and therefore market conditions will change. Several things can happen over the period while you're waiting. So don't delay. Just go with what works best for you. All right. And that concludes what I have to share with you today. Remember, most of what I've shared, it is not exhaustive. There is so much more to this buying process and selling process because it goes both ways, right? And it can be more complicated. There are additional things that will be shared with you. This is really a highlight to bring you in the know so that you are aware. For example, another thing I didn't even share, make sure you know you have your down payment and your closing costs, buyers. All right, because you don't want to have any surprises, nor for you, nor for anyone else within that transaction. So, these are little things that I believe will be helpful for you. If you have any questions, do let me know. And remember, my name, Nadine Mendez. For if I didn't say that earlier, and I am a broker and founder of Amazing Journey Realty, where we're driven, committed, and driven for your success. Um, Usually, before I leave, I would share a little tip or motivational tip, and this is coming on the heels of a difficult month. January was considered pretty difficult when you think about all the mishaps, surprises, disasters. It really, we have to just call it as it is. It has been an interesting month, and I just wanted to share this with those who are going through losses. Bereaving right now, just to share something. Hopefully, this will be helpful for you. And remember, I'm a Christian. I'm not biased against any religion, but I'm sharing what I have. And this is from Psalm 112, verse 4. And it says, even in darkness, light dawns for the upright, for the gracious and compassionate and righteous man. Therefore, continue to believe. And what I've learned today, I've actually used to say that quite often, where there is life, there is hope. And with that said, I just want to wish you a wonderful, amazing week. God bless you. Take care. Ciao.